You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. Now, back to the show with local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell.
You are listening to The Money Hour at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, July 16th show. You can also listen to my podcast, Facebook premiere, or you can listen to my show YouTube channel. In addition, for more information on my upcoming events, please go to tinamitchellevents.com. I am your host and local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. It is a great day to talk about money, and that is what my show is all about: how to make money, save money, so you can have a better quality of life for you and your family. If you are hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. I'm here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that I have on the show. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150, or you can go online to themoneyhour.com. And now on my show, Kathleen Gordon of A Right Place for Seniors, Senior Living Options, right here on 1150 AM KKNW. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to showcase you and your business. So Kathleen has been a social worker in Tucson, Arizona for over 37 years. She is experienced in medical social work, hospice, case management, and counseling for elderly and disabled, and nonprofit and counseling in public schools, private practice, investigations for guardianship, and controversy cases, providing therapy for youth in a psychiatric treatment center, foster care and adoption with older children, providing workshops and seminars on parenting, management, and grant writing in school system, training in adults and youth on stress reduction techniques. Kathleen does a lot. Kathleen completed her social work career at the Veterans Health Administration as program coordinator for medical foster home program. And when Kathleen is not working, she enjoys walking, reading, and traveling. So again, really excited to showcase you, Kathleen, and what you do. So how can you help families with an elderly loved one who needs assistance?
Well, what a great question. So as a senior living consultant, I work with families to help them through that process when their elderly loved one can no longer take care of themselves. And it's really interesting because so many calls that I get are something like, hey, my mom just needs a little bit of help after she gets out of the shower, or my dad's okay, but he just needs some help cooking. And then when I get there in person and I meet them, I assess and I find out they actually do need a lot more. And so I have to explain to the families sometimes what's going on with them cognitively, their short-term memory, long-term memory type things, do a physical assessment. And then we talk about what is the family really looking for? What do they envision mom or dad staying in their own home? Do we need in-home services? Because we can work with that. Mm-hmm. Or are they looking at a placement? Are they looking at a senior community? Maybe independent living. By that time, they probably need more assistance. So assisted living, or maybe memory care. So from that point, I research, and since I know the community here in our area, I know them well. I set up tours. I go on the tours with the families, and I see them through that whole process until their loved one is moved into their home. So I make it very personal service.
And what them. A great, great service. Kathleen, we should have probably, my mother-in-law, my husband's mom had part-time caregivers, and we should have probably done something sooner. It was her telling us she actually had to have her dog Seiko find her way home. So what you're doing is so important. So Kathleen, how much does your service cost?
Well, you know what, Tina, when people ask me, I love this answer because there is no cost for my service for the families. And that's one of the things that makes me feel so good about it is, so many times families are stressed out, and maybe their loved one is in the hospital or they're in a rehab facility. They fell, they broke the hip, and all of a sudden life has changed. And when you say, oh, well, I know this person who can help you, and they think, oh my gosh, but how much does it cost?
Yes.
You don't have to pay me anything. I get paid strictly by commission from the communities that we contract with.
Yeah,
So
that is really great to be able to offer something that's able to come from a community supporting platform. So, Kathleen, what signs or symptoms should a family member be aware of and may indicate that their elderly loved one might need a little assistance?
gosh, there's a lot. So on the physical end, there's things like, if you notice that your mom or dad has bruises that you haven't seen before, they have cuts or scrapes, ask them if they've had a fall, or maybe they had a fall, and then you're saying, "Are you okay?" And most of the time, parents are going to say, "Oh, I'm fine," because they don't really want to be a burden to their family, and so you need to see them. You need to go be there in person. In terms of their memory, we talk about what happens with, it's called mild cognitive impairment versus like full-blown dementia. So a mild cognitive impairment is going to be things like they often, and I really emphasize that word often, they often forget things. They often forget, for example, their medical appointments. They forget that they just had breakfast 20 minutes ago. They forget that a family member came to visit and did their laundry for them. That they are going into full-blown dementia. They need more help. So basically the signs and symptoms, when they cannot handle their own personal care, their memory is failing, they need help with their personal care. They need help with their shopping. They need help getting to medical appointments. They need help to remember things. They need somebody to handle their finances.
Yeah.
That's what signs and symptoms.
And, speaking from experience, really taking advantage of the resources that are out there sooner than later, because it is a lot and extra emotional when it's your mom or dad that you're trying to support when you don't have that expertise, right? So Kathleen, can a family members feel safe about placing their elderly loved ones in a senior community? I mean, you hear some nightmare stories. So what would you say on that?
Well, another reason, and a great reason, to work with a consultant, because we know the communities, we have vetted them. I know, for example, in my area, I know the staff members. I can say, "Hey, I've talked to Anna over here, and I've talked to Sue over here," that sort of thing. And before I take a family on a tour, I've always gone myself. I make sure they are okay with the Department of Health. I will check to make sure that they don't have any deficiencies. I want to know that they have enough staff members, because the last thing I want is for a family member to call me, 2 weeks later and say, "Hey, Kathleen, you told me this place was good, but they don't have enough staff to take care of my mom. I'm really worried." Yeah. They are fine and they are great. And really, I think one thing for families to know is that these communities, they really emphasize independence for as long as possible. So it's not like, "Oh gosh, I'm putting my mom or dad away, and oh gosh, they might as well roll over in the grave." That's not it at all. They are wonderful. They're professional. And I really encourage families to go take a look. Go on some tours.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So Kathleen, when is a good time to plan for transition into senior living community?
Oh gosh. I want to say it's never too early.
Now, you need to think about it now.
You do. We put so much time and effort into thinking about things like, gosh, planning my 401k and my retirement. And we think along those lines, okay, pay off the mortgage, pay off the car, and get the kids through college or whatever. What do we do for planning for end of life care?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't. So I would say, when you're thinking about retirement, start thinking about end of life care. Thinking about how and where. Do you want to be in a large facility that some of them can be just like a cruise ship on land, and it's anything and everything you want? You never have to change another light bulb. You never have to take out the trash. There might be a place up the road here with 5 restaurants in the facility. Of course, the more you have, the more you're going to pay.
Yeah.
So planning ahead, talk to your family members about your wishes, about what kind of a place. Do you plan to stay in your own home and bring in services? I think, the reality is, Tina, is that every single one of us have to face that mortality. We all get older. We all are going to face decline. And so we need to prepare for that. And great way to do that is just to be having those conversations with our family members and our friends and let them know what our wishes are. What do we plan to do?
Yeah, nothing to procrastinate on. I mean, you know what it looks like when you procrastinate on doing your taxes. You know what it looks like when you procrastinate in getting an investment in estate planning. I mean, all these things are important, even at a higher level. You don't want to be procrastinating when it comes to getting into your senior years and what that next stage and journey is going to look like for you. Make those decisions now and plan ahead. So, Kathleen, do you partner with other professionals in this transition process for the elderly?
Oh my gosh, yes, a lot of other professionals. It is really a team effort with many of these. I partner with real estate agents. I partner with elder law attorneys, with physicians, with nurses, social workers, folks who work at hospitals who do the discharge planning, fiduciaries. I just met with a real estate agent this morning, and folks who work in the communities themselves. Sometimes they know each other, and sometimes they'll contact me and say, "Hey, for some reason this just wasn't a good fit. We've had this person X amount of time. Can you work with them?"
Yeah.
A lot of times the family members will just call me. They'll find out, and so they call on their own. So it's really partnering with a lot of people. Yep.
Yeah. So what about changing physicians? So when they are going into a senior community, do they have to change their physicians, or can they remain?
A lot of times people will say, I'm going to keep my doctor because I like my doctor. I've had this doctor for X number of years, and they can do that. Oftentimes what happens is they move into a community, and whether it's a large community where there's, a lot of people and lots of services, and maybe they have a team right there on their campus, or even a smaller home, adult care home in a community where they have a medical team that's familiar with their patients as well. Many times what happens is the resident moves in and they see how the other residents are being treated and how familiar this medical team is with all of them and their staff. Wow. And they get comfortable. And so they decide to go that way. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that way, but oftentimes it is.
That makes sense. So again, your services are free for the families. They're not paying anything to have an expert that knows all of the communities that are available out there. Just really quick question. And because we need to wrap up the show. What is just an average on cost?
So, it's interesting because the Tucson area and actually Washington State area are not far apart. So we're looking at the lower end about $3,800 and higher end over $6,500, $7,000. The more hands-on care that the patient needs, of course, the more the cost is going to be. Memory care is also more expensive. So we need to keep that in mind. And just kind of on the side, I will say there's a couple people in Washington that you can get a hold of. Adrienne Bird can be reached at 360-209-5667, or Cassandra Johnson at 425-329-6620.
Yeah, and thank you for the shout out for them. You can just call into the show. I know both of them. I do a lot of work with the organization. I just really appreciate you being here, Kathleen, and supporting what you do. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tina.